I'd raised them to be strong, independent, to question authority when authority was wrong, but somewhere along the way they'd learnt to question everything I said simply because I was the one saying it. Maybe that was my fault. Maybe I'd done too good a job teaching them to stand up for themselves and not enough teaching them when to sit down and listen. The morning of my 80th birthday started like any other Thursday. I woke at dawn, not because I'm particularly virtuous, but because at my age, sleep becomes a scarce commodity. I made coffee in the old percolator Gerald bought me 40 years ago before the cancer took him. The kitchen still smelled like him sometimes, especially in the early hours. Old Spice and sawdust, even though both had been gone from this house for 15 years. I sat at the table and looked at the stack of medical bills I'd hidden under a Better Homes and Gardens magazine. $14,000 so far. The treatments hadn't even really started yet. Melissa came downstairs around 11, her blonde hair in a messy bun, wearing pyjamas that probably cost more than my first car. She grabbed a LaCroix from the fridge without acknowledging me. This had become our routine. I was furniture to her. Useful when she needed something, invisible the rest of the time. "Morning, sweetheart," I said anyway. She glanced at her phone. "It's almost noon, Mum." "Well, good afternoon then." She rolled her eyes, actually rolled them like a teenager, though she was 34 years old. "Bryn and Courtney are coming over later. We're working on a project." Bryn and Courtney were her college roommates, now her constant companions in avoiding adulthood. They'd sit in my living room drinking my wine, talking about manifestation and toxic energy and how their parents just didn't understand the new economy. I'd bitten my tongue so many times it should have been scarred. "It's Thursday," I said carefully. "Did you have your interview this morning?" Her jaw tightened. I rescheduled. "Melissa, Mum, I'm not doing this today. Courtney says that position wasn't aligned with my energy anyway." I took a slow breath. "Courtney doesn't pay your car insurance or your phone bill. Or, oh my God, here we go." She slammed the fridge door. "You keep track of every single thing like I'm some kind of burden." "You know what, Bryn's mum doesn't. Bryn's mum has a trust fund and a drinking problem," I said quietly. "I have neither. I have a mortgage and a daughter who needs to stand on her own 2 feet. She stared at me with something close to hatred. It took my breath away. How easily that look came to her now. "You're so judgmental," she said. "So controlling. You wonder why I don't want to be around you." She left before I could answer, her footsteps heavy on the stairs. I sat there with my lukewarm coffee, feeling the familiar ache in my chest that had nothing to do with my heart condition, though sometimes I couldn't tell the difference anymore. Kevin appeared around noon, smelling like stale beer and cologne. My son, my baby boy, who used to bring me dandelions from the yard and call them roses, now he brought me excuses and half-truths and requests for money. "Big day, Ma," he said, kissing my forehead with the casual affection of someone who thinks gestures replace substance. "The big 80, that's like ancient." "Thank you for that reminder," I said dryly. He laughed, missing the sarcasm entirely, and grabbed a Red Bull from the fridge. At 36, he still raided my groceries like a college student. "So listen, Travis and I have been talking." Travis, of course, his best friend since freshman year, the one who'd convinced him to drop out senior year to pursue opportunities. The opportunities had included a failed food truck, a disastrous cryptocurrency investment, and a multi-level marketing scheme that left Kevin $30,000 in debt. "And we think we've really got something this time. It's an app, right, for people who want to." Kevin, I set down my coffee cup. "Do you know what today is?" He blinked. "Yeah, your birthday." "That's what I just said." "Do you know how old I am?" 80. I literally just, "Mum, are you okay?" I looked at my son, really looked at him. He had Gerald's eyes, that same warm brown that used to make my knees weak, but there was something missing in them now. Not cruelty, Kevin wasn't cruel, just absence, like he was perpetually somewhere else, chasing the next big thing, never quite present in the moment he was actually living. "I made a reservation at Denny's for 6 o'clock, I said. "I'd like both of you there." His face did something complicated. Denny's? Mum, come on, it's your 80th, we should go somewhere nice. We've always gone to Denny's. Yeah, when we were kids. Can't we go to like the Capitol Grill or something? Make it special. What he meant was, can't we go somewhere Instagram worthy? Somewhere Travis and Bryn and Courtney would be impressed by. I felt suddenly desperately tired. Denny's at 6, I repeated. Please, he sighed, the put-upon sigh of a man being asked to do something mildly inconvenient. Fine, yeah, okay. That afternoon I sat in Gerald's old chair by the window and watched the neighbourhood. The Johnsons' house across the street had been sold to a young couple with twins. The twins played in the yard while their mother gardened, and I remembered being her 35 years ago, convinced I'd be young forever. Time doesn't warn you, it just takes. I pulled out the envelope from under my mattress. Inside was a single piece of paper, a letter from Dr. Morrison. I'd read it so many times I had it memorised. Progressive supranuclear palsy. Degenerative, no cure. 12 to 18 months before significant mobility loss. 24 to 36 months median survival after diagnosis. I'd known for 6 months. I hadn't told them. What would be the point? So Melissa could feel obligated to care for a mother she resented. So Kevin could add dying parent to his list of excuses for why his life wasn't working out. No, I'd handle this the way I'd handled everything since Gerald died, with dignity, privately, without burdening anyone who didn't want to be burdened. But tonight I was going to tell them I owed them that much, didn't I? They were my children. They deserved to know. At 6:15, we sat in the same corner booth where we'd celebrated Kevin's graduation from high school, Melissa's first job, every small victory and disappointment. The vinyl seats were cracked now, repaired with duct tape. The waitress, Sandra, I'd known her for years, brought me a piece of chocolate cake with a single candle. Make a wish, Dorothy, she said kindly. I looked at my children. Melissa was texting under the table. Kevin was checking his watch. Neither of them looked at the cake, or at me, or at anything except their own private urgencies. I blew out the candle. I didn't make a wish. What would I even wish for? So, Kevin said, cutting into his burger, Travis thinks we could get initial funding if we... I need to tell you something, I said. Melissa looked up from her phone, annoyed. What? I opened my mouth, closed it. How do you tell your children you're dying when they can barely stand to be in the same room with you? I'm proud of you both, I said instead. It wasn't what I'd planned, but it was true. Despite everything, it was true. Kevin laughed, uncomfortable. Okay, random. But thanks. Melissa's eyes narrowed. Is this about the interview again? Because I told you no, I said. It's not about the interview, then what? She set her phone down with exaggerated patience. What is it, Mum? What do you need to tell us that's so important you're making this whole dramatic thing out of my birthday dinner for you? Your birthday dinner for me. The words hung in the air, revealing everything. This wasn't about celebrating me. This was an obligation they were fulfilling, poorly, with resentment. You know what, Melissa continued, her voice rising. I'm so tired of this, of you making everything about you, about your rules, your expectations, your disappointment in us. Melissa, Kevin started, but she was on a roll now. No, Kevin, she needs to hear this. Mum, you've been guilt-tripping us for years. We can't do anything right. We can't make our own choices. You judge everything, where we work, who we're friends with, how we spend our money. Money I give you, I said quietly. Her face flushed. See, there it is, you keep score. Every dollar, every favour, every single thing you've ever done for us, you hold it over our heads like we owe you our entire lives. Something in my chest cracked. Not my heart, something deeper, the place where hope lives. I don't see you as a mother anymore, Melissa said, and her voice broke on the word mother, but not with sadness, with relief, like she was finally admitting something she'd wanted to say for years. I see you as this obstacle, this person I have to manage and work around and... Lissa, come on, Kevin said, but his voice was weak. He wasn't really defending me, he was just uncomfortable with the confrontation. What? She turned on him. You said it yourself on the way here. You said you were tired of her. Kevin had the grace to look ashamed, but he didn't deny it. I said we're tired of the criticism, of never being good enough. You've never even tried to be good enough, I said, and my voice came out harder than I intended. Either of you. You want praise for mediocrity. You want credit for existing. You want me to celebrate every failed job, every abandoned responsibility, every choice that leads you further from the adults you're supposed to be. There it is, Melissa said triumphantly. There's the real Dorothy, the one who thinks she's better than everyone. I don't think I'm better, I said. I think I'm tired. Yeah? Kevin said. And there was an edge to his voice I'd never heard before. Well, we're tired too, Mum. We've been tired of you, of this, of pretending like we're still some happy family when really you're exhausting. The words landed like physical blows. I looked at my children, these two people I'd carried in my body, nursed through illnesses, sat up with during nightmares, sacrificed everything for, and I saw strangers, worse than strangers. Strangers at least have the possibility of kindness. I thought about the letter in my purse, the diagnosis, the timeline, 12 to 18 months before I wouldn't be able to walk. 24 to 36 months before, but they didn't want to know. They didn't want the burden of my dying any more than they wanted the burden of my living. So I smiled. It surprised them, I could tell. They expected tears, argument, guilt. They didn't expect peace. I reached for a napkin from the metal dispenser. My hands trembled slightly. The first visible symptom, Dr. Morrison had said, but my mind was perfectly clear. I pulled a pen from my purse and wrote carefully, my cursive still neat despite the tremor. I'm leaving the house to the St. Vincent de Paul Society. Everything else goes to the Children's Hospital where your father volunteered. Oh, you're right, you are tired of me, so I'm setting you free. Don't come to the funeral. Live the lives you want without obstacle. I love you both. I always will. But I won't be in your way anymore. Mum, I folded the napkin neatly, precisely, the way I'd folded their baby blankets, their school notes, their prom corsages. I placed it beside the uneaten cake. Then I stood up, my legs steadier than they'd been in months, fueled by something that felt like sorrow but looked like strength. I love you both, I said. Melissa scoffed. Kevin looked at his plate. I walked out of Denny's into the parking lot, into the cool September evening that smelled like rain and regret. I got into my old Camry, the one Kevin had once begged me to replace with something less embarrassing, and I drove home. I didn't cry. I'd cried enough in my life. Tonight I felt something different, something clean and final. I'd raised them the best I could. I'd loved them beyond reason, and now I was releasing them from the burden of loving me back. Behind me, in that corner booth, my children were reaching for the napkin. I drove home slowly, taking the long way through downtown Cedar Falls. The streetlights were just coming on, casting everything in that golden hour glow that makes even strip malls look almost beautiful. I passed the library where I'd taken them for story time every Saturday, the park where Kevin broke his arm falling off the swings and Melissa learnt to ride her bike, the ice cream shop where Gerald proposed to me 55 years ago, back when it was a diner. All of it would continue without me. The world doesn't stop when you leave it. That's the hardest truth nobody tells you. When I got home, the house was dark and quiet. I stood in the doorway for a moment, feeling the weight of 40 years of memories pressing against my chest. Gerald built the deck out back. Melissa took her first steps in that hallway. Kevin hid report cards behind that loose board in his closet, thinking, I didn't know. I made myself tea, chamomile, the kind Gerald used to say tasted like soap but drank anyway because it helped me sleep. I sat at the kitchen table and waited, not for anything in particular. Just waited, because that's what you do when you've said everything that needs saying and there's nothing left but the aftermath. My phone rang at 7:43. Melissa, I stared at it until it stopped. It rang again immediately. Kevin this time. I let it go to voicemail. They called 6 more times that night. I didn't answer. I went to bed early, took my medications, the ones that slowed the progression but couldn't stop it, and lay in the dark listening to the house settle around me. Old houses talk, especially at night. They creak and sigh like they're remembering everyone who ever lived inside them. I slept better than I had in months. The next morning they were on my porch at dawn. I heard the car pull up, the frantic knocking, Melissa's voice calling, "Mum, Mum, please open the door." I took my time, made coffee, got dressed, brushed my hair. When I finally opened the door, they both looked terrible. Melissa's eyes were swollen from crying. Kevin's shirt was wrinkled like he'd slept in it. "Mum," Melissa said, her voice breaking. "Mum, we need to talk." "There's nothing to talk about," I said calmly. "I meant what I wrote." "You can't," Kevin started, then stopped. "You can't give everything away. That's our inheritance." Something in me went very cold. "Your inheritance," I repeated slowly. "Is that what I am to you? A future payday?" "That's not what he meant," Melissa said quickly, shooting Kevin a look. "Mum, please, let us in." I didn't move from the doorway. "Why?" "Because we're sorry," she said, and she was crying now, really crying. "Because we were horrible, because we didn't mean it." "Yes, you did," I said, and there was no anger in my voice, just truth. "You meant every word, and that's fine, you're adults. You're allowed to feel however you feel. But I'm also an adult, and I'm allowed to make my own choices about my own life." "We read the whole napkin," Kevin said quietly. "The part about the funeral. Mum, what does that mean? Are you sick?" I looked at my son, this man who still somehow seemed like a boy to me, and I made a decision. Not out of spite or punishment, but out of something clearer than that. Honesty. "Yes," I said, "I'm sick. I have been for 6 months. Progressive supranuclear palsy. It's degenerative. There's no cure." Melissa made a sound like she'd been hit. "What? When? How long?" 12 to 18 months before I lose mobility. 2 to 3 years, probably, before the end. Kevin's face crumbled. "Why didn't you tell us? What difference would it have made?" I asked simply. "Would you have been kinder, more patient, or would you have felt obligated to pretend and resented me even more for forcing that on you?" "Mum, that's not..." "We would have..." Melissa couldn't finish. "Because we both knew the answer. I don't want obligation," I said. "I don't want guilt-driven duty. I've lived my whole life being needed. And I'm tired. You were right about that part. I am tired." "So what?" Kevin's voice rose, desperate. "You're just giving up, giving everything away, pushing us out." "I'm setting you free," I said. Like I wrote, "You don't have to take care of me. You don't have to watch me deteriorate. You don't have to carry that weight. The hospice facility is already arranged. St. Vincent's will handle the house. The hospital will put the money to good use. You can go live your lives." "Stop saying that," Melissa shouted. "Stop acting like we don't care, do you?" I asked quietly. The question hung between us like smoke. "We're here, aren't we?" Kevin said, but his voice was weak. "You're here because you read a napkin that mentioned your inheritance," I said. "If I'd just told you about the diagnosis, would you be standing on this porch right now? Or would you be calling it heavy and draining and asking your friends how to deal with your toxic mother?" Melissa flinched like I'd slapped her. "How do you? You talk very loud on the phone," I said. "And these walls are thin." We stood there in the early morning light, 3 people connected by blood and history and nothing else. "I love you both," I said again. "I do, but love isn't enough anymore. You need to become people I can respect, and I need to stop waiting for that to happen. So I'm letting go. It's better this way." "It's not better," Melissa whispered. "Mum, please, we'll do better. We'll know," I said gently. "You won't. Not because you can't, but because you don't want to." And that's okay, but I'm not going to spend my last good months begging my own children to tolerate me. I started to close the door. Wait, Kevin's hand shot out, stopping it. What do we have to do to change your mind? I looked at him for a long moment. Grow up, I said simply. Not for me, for yourselves. Get jobs, pay your own bills, stop blaming everyone else for your choices. Become the adults your father and I raised you to be. And then, Melissa asked, if we do that, will you? I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe it's too late. Maybe we've already broken something that can't be fixed. But at least you'd be standing on your own 2 feet when I'm gone. I closed the door. I stood on the porch for another 10 minutes. I heard them talking, arguing, crying. Eventually they left. 3 weeks passed. My phone stayed silent. I told myself it didn't hurt. I'd meant what I said. I was setting them free. But the truth I only admitted to myself in the dark hours before dawn, was that I'd hoped they'd prove me wrong. Then on a Tuesday morning there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Kevin, alone, wearing a Lowe's uniform. I got a job, he said without preamble. Hardware department. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work. Travis thinks I'm selling out. He took a shaky breath. I told Travis to screw himself. I stared at my son, speechless. I'm moving into an apartment, he continued. Studio cheap, but it's mine. I'm paying for it myself. And Mum, his voice cracked. I'm so sorry for all of it, for being a child when I should have been a man, for taking you for granted, for being so obsessed with some imaginary future that I couldn't see what I was losing in the present. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I didn't let them fall yet. I don't know if this changes anything, Kevin said. I don't know if you'll forgive me, but I needed you to know that I heard you. I finally heard you. I pulled my son into my arms and he collapsed against me like he used to when he was small and the world seemed too big. I'm so sorry, Mum, he sobbed. I'm so sorry. I know, baby, I whispered. I know. Melissa came 2 days later. She cut her hair short, professional. She wore a simple blouse and slacks instead of her usual expensive athleisure. I got hired at a marketing firm, she said, entry level. I start Monday, and she swallowed hard. I ended my friendship with Courtney and Bryn. They were never really my friends anyway. They just made me feel better about making bad choices. She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. I'm not asking you to change your will. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know that I'm trying. I'm really trying to be someone you'd be proud of. I've always been proud of you, I said softly. That was never the issue. I know, she whispered. The issue was whether I'd ever be proud of myself. It didn't fix everything. Healing never happens in a single conversation. But over the following months, something shifted. Kevin came by every Sunday, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. He'd tell me about work, about his small victories, about learning to budget and cook and pay bills on time. Melissa called twice a week. Real conversations, not obligatory check-ins. She talked about her job, her new friends, the therapy she'd started. She apologised for things I'd already forgiven. When the tremors got worse and I could no longer drive, Kevin took me to my appointments. When I started needing help with groceries, Melissa came shopping with me, not as a chore, but as time spent together. I changed my will back, not because they'd earned it, but because they'd become the people I always knew they could be. And because in the end what I really wanted to leave them wasn't money or property. I wanted to leave them the knowledge that they could choose who they became, that it's never too late to grow up, that love sometimes means speaking hard truths instead of comfortable lies. On my 81st birthday, we went back to Denny's, same corner booth. Sandra brought me chocolate cake with a single candle. Make a wish, Dorothy, she said. I looked at my children, really looked at them. Kevin steady and present, Melissa clear-eyed and purposeful. They looked back at me with something I hadn't seen in years, not obligation, but genuine affection. I closed my eyes and blew out the candle. This time I made a wish, not for more time though. I wanted it, not for a cure, though I needed it. I wished that they'd remember this, the hard parts and the healing, the breaking and the rebuilding. I wished they'd carry forward not just my memory, but the lessons earned in that painful September night when I walked away from a table and toward my own dignity. I wished they'd know that the best inheritance I could give them wasn't a house or money. It was the truth that real love doesn't enable weakness. It demands strength. It calls us to become our best selves, even when, especially when it's hard. What did you wish for? Melissa asked. I smiled, squeezing both their hands. For exactly this, I said, and it was enough.